I didn't notice the field until the road ended abruptly, swallowed by a stretch of cracked gravel that narrowed until the weeds claimed it entirely. I thought it was just a break in the countryside, a patch of untended land. The sun fell low, stretching my shadow across the ground, and the sky seemed impossibly wide, too bright and too empty. Then I saw it, a hollowed square of earth, gray and barren, cutting itself out of the landscape like a wound in the world. I should have left it, but my legs carried me forward anyway. The soil was soft, almost as though it had been sifted through hands and left to settle again, gray like an old bonfire. Though no fire had touched it, the air carried nothing. Not a bird, not a fly, not the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. There was only silence stretched taut like a drum. The ground, it wasn't level. There were depressions, shallow at first, round and deep, scattered across the hollow. Some were wide enough to fit a man's palm, some the size of a head. They looked as though the earth had been clawed from below, hands pushing upward in desperation. I stepped into the hollow. The soil gave way under my boots, sinking with each step, soft and unyielding. The silence followed me, pressing against my ears, pressing against my chest, until I was sure I could hear my heartbeat pounding in the soles of my shoes. By the time I left hours later, the dirt had stuck to my boots. It was heavier than it should have been, dark under the sun, as if it carried something inside it that the light could not touch. When I got home, I set my boots by the door, but the soil seemed almost alive. It warmed slowly, faintly steaming, as though it had spent the day breathing beneath the surface. I didn't stay away. I went back the next day, and the next. Each time the hollow shifted beneath me. Sometimes the depressions were gone, filled smooth like nothing had ever broken the earth. Other times, they multiplied, spiraling outwards in patterns that made no sense, expanding in a field that had no edges. I knelt by them, pressed my hands into the soil. It was warm. Sometimes it would beat beneath my palms, like something deep inside was trying to breathe through me. The air changed one evening, rolling over the field in thick waves. Heat rose in wavering currents, and the ground trembled beneath my knees. I smelled a bitter, rotting sweetness. And then the hollows moved. Hands broke the surface first, twisted and elongated, claws curling unnaturally as if bending the rules of bone itself. The skin seemed translucent in patches, and the nails were brittle shards, chipped and jagged. Arms followed, misshapen and grotesque. Faces came last and they weren't human. Skulls misaligned, jaws opening far beyond reason, eyes too wide and empty. They didn't scream. They didn't need to. Their hunger pressed against me like a physical force. I ran, but the horizon stayed still. The field stretched on without end. No matter how far I pushed forward, the hollow was underfoot, the earth beneath my soles, alive and watching. The things emerged without urgency. They knew there was no escape. I don't remember falling. One moment I was upright, the next I was pressed to the soil. Their touch was cold, cutting through flesh, bone, and thought until I could no longer tell where I ended. My own body was nothing but a conduit, and every inch of the field pulsed with them, waiting to claim me fully. The sky folded in strange angles above me. The horizon curved like water. Faces formed in the dirt, silent mouths straining upward, endless, hungry. My breath turned to ash before it left my lips. My skin burned. I was sinking into the soil, being absorbed yet still aware, still seeing. When I finally rose, I was standing again. The horizon returned. The dirt was smooth beneath my boots. My hands were clean, but I was not. The warmth has never left me. Sometimes I glance at my reflection in windows, and my eyes are darker, hollow, older than they should be. I see shadows moving just beneath my skin, waiting, patient. The silence follows me now, stretching over every corner, every shadow, pressing against me when I sit, when I walk, when I breathe. I know what the field is. It is not a place. It is a mouth. And I walked onto its tongue willingly, feeling it swallow me inch by inch. It waits. And when it opens again, I won't resist, because it has already consumed what I once called me. I never believed in demons. Stories about possession, whispers in the dark. Those belong to other people. Obviously, they have a screw loose. I told myself that kind of madness couldn't reach me, but I was wrong. The basement apartment was too cheap to trust, and I should have known better. It smelled of mildew, of soil that never quite dried. The walls sweated when the pipes groaned, and the floor always seemed faintly warm, as though something underneath it breathed. The first days passed uneventfully enough. Then I began noticing small intrusions. My keys in the freezer, my phone in the bathtub, my shoes lined up neatly on the windowsill, though I lived alone. I laughed at it, tried to tell myself I was forgetful, but a part of me already knew the apartment was testing me, learning how far it could reach. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the water move through the pipes. It never sounded fully like water, though. Sometimes it was whispers, sometimes frantic tapping, sometimes wet laughter muffled by metal. No matter how loud I turned up the radio, I could always hear it underneath. One evening, while brushing my teeth, I leaned close to the bathroom mirror and saw movement behind my reflection. Not a shadow exactly, more like a ripple of something pressed against the glass from the other side. The steam on the mirror cleared, and my reflection's eyes stayed dark for a moment too long, before catching up with me. From then on, nothing in the apartment matched what I remembered. The layout seemed off, the corners sharper, the hallway longer. I'd cross the room to turn on the lamp only to find the switch missing. The fridge hummed in a rhythm like a pulse, and always that heat beneath the floor, never fading. The worst was the laughter. It began quietly, a chuckle that I could almost explain away as a neighbor's television, but it grew clearer each night until I recognized words tangled in the sound. They spoke my name in voices that weren't human, layered and overlapping, too many throats in unison. Every time I froze, the laughter stopped, only to start again once I moved. One night, the apartment simply dropped its pretense. The walls shifted, bulging outward, pulsing like muscle. The air stank of copper and sulfur, a weight pressing against my chest with every breath. I reached for the door, but the knob burned my palm as though it had been resting on a stove. Behind me, something stirred in the corner, a shape darker than the dark itself, unfolding limb by limb. I didn't move. My body was mine, but my will wasn't. A hand, black and slick, pressed against the wall until the plaster cracked around its fingers, then another. Then, a face, not shaped like anything human, pressed forward, as though pushing through a membrane. Eyes, like open wounds, fixed on me. "You let us in," it said. Not in sound. Its words bloomed inside my skull like rot. I staggered back, but the floor swelled beneath my feet. Heat poured through my shoes, up my legs, until my knees buckled. The shape crawled free, followed by others, all faceless, their bodies stretching wrong, their limbs bending to angles that scraped the walls. They ringed me, leaning close, breath like fire and decay. I tried to scream, but my voice bent into something else, a language my throat wasn't made to speak. They seemed pleased. They echoed me, dozens of voices shaping the same twisted syllables, filling the room with vibrations that shook the light bulb in its socket until it burst. Then it was dark. I don't remember what happened after. When I opened my eyes, the sun was shining. The walls looked normal. The floor was still, cool to the touch. But my chest burned as if branded, and there was something on the nightstand that hadn't been there before. A tooth, blackened, drumming faintly as though it carried a heartbeat of its own. Since then, I haven't left the apartment. Every time I try to walk out the door, my vision tunnels until the knob slides away like an illusion. The laughter follows me from room to room. I catch glimpses of them in the mirrors, the windows, the shine of the faucet. They're closer every day, more solid, less interested in hiding. I understand now that it was never about me choosing this place. The place chose me. The basement was never just an apartment, it was a mouth waiting to open. The floor is quiet now, but that's because it no longer needs to rise. I've already sunk beneath it. The chill wasn't just in the air, it was in the house. A cold that seeped into the bones and made the marrow ache. My name is Arthur, and this is the story of how my life became a testament to terror. It started with the shadow, a flicker in the corner of my eye, a distortion of the dim hallway light. I'd dismiss it as a trick of tired eyes, a consequence of long nights spent poring over old books in my study. But the shadow grew bolder, more defined. It was a silhouette of something tall, slender, and unnaturally still. It would stand at the top of the stairs, a silent sentinel watching me. I tried to rationalize it. The old house, the creaks and groans of settling wood, the play of moonlight through the warped glass panes. I even bought motion-activated lights, a foolish attempt to illuminate something that didn't exist in the physical world. The lights would snap on and the space would be empty. The shadow, however, remained. I started sleeping with a lamp on. The golden glow, a pathetic shield against the creeping darkness. It didn't matter. The dreams started then. They weren't like normal nightmares. They were cold, lucid visions of a place that wasn't here. A dark, cavernous space where the air tasted of dust and decay. I would see the figure there. Not a shadow anymore, but a being of pure, swirling blackness, with a face that was a negative of a human's, all hollowed out and empty. And it would speak, not with a voice, but with a presence that vibrated in my mind, a language of pure malevolence. "I'm here now," it would whisper, and I'd wake up, drenched in sweat. The room silent, save for my own ragged breathing. My sanity began to fray at the edges. I stopped eating, a knot of dread in my stomach, replacing all hunger. I couldn't focus on my work. The books that once brought me comfort now felt like meaningless words. The shadow wasn't content with just watching anymore. I would be in the living room, and a door would slowly swing open. I'd slam it shut, only for it to slowly creak open again. I tried to lock them, but the bolts would slide back as if by an unseen hand. The temperature in the house plummeted. My breath would hang in the air like fog. I tried to call a priest, but the phone lines would inexplicably go dead whenever I dialed a number. My isolation was complete. One night I was woken by a sound I had never heard before. Not a creak or a groan, but a deep hum, like a tuning fork vibrating at a frequency too low for human ears. I sat up in bed, my heart frantic against my ribs. The humming grew louder, and then I saw it. The shadow was standing at the foot of my bed, no longer a silhouette, but a three-dimensional being of obsidian. It had long skeletal fingers that extended from its sides, tipped with claws that scraped against the hardwood floor, a sound like glass shattering. Its face, that terrible void, was inches from mine. My throat became paralyzed with fear. No screaming allowed. I could feel its presence, a tangible wave of malice that pressed down on me, suffocating me. The humming was its voice, and it was screaming my name. "Arthur!" it hissed. "Arthur, you are mine!" I thrashed against the unseen force, pinning me down, but it was useless. Its long fingers reached out, and one of them touched my forehead. A jolt of pure agony, a searing fire that coursed through my veins, consuming me from the inside. I felt a part of myself, something deep and fundamental, being ripped away. It wasn't just my life it wanted, it was my very essence. I fought back, a silent, desperate battle for my soul. I prayed, but no words came. I was alone, facing a primordial evil that had chosen me as its next meal. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the presence was gone. The cold receded, the humming ceased, and the oppressive weight lifted. I lay there, gasping, my body trembling uncontrollably. I was alive, but I was not whole. I felt an emptiness where my courage used to be. The fear had not left, it had burrowed deep, a parasitic entity that now lived within me. I am a ghost in my own home, a prisoner of a terror that has no form, no face, only a memory of a shadow and a searing touch. My mind is no longer my own. The demon is gone, but the hum remains. It isn't just a sound, it's a seed of something else growing within me. I am a vessel now, a hollowed-out puppet waiting for the strings to be pulled. I am Arthur, and I am already him.